So today we are going to talk about the difference between the import mode and the direct query. What is the exact difference? In one line, the difference is that import mode will store the data in Power BI, whereas direct query will keep the data into the DB itself, but it will just query it. So let us try to understand this practically with the example. So as you can see on the screen, I have got this SQL server locally, and this particular server has got a DB and this has got a particular table. So I will try to fetch the data from this particular SQL server to the Power BI in both ways, using direct query and using import mode, and then you'll understand how it works. So first of all, what we need to do is within this home ribbon, I need to click on this get data option, and let's say we are fetching the data from SQL server. So I will click on SQL server. The next thing that I do is I need to connect to my server. So I'll just put the server name which I have created locally. So now that I have put the server name of the DB, the next thing that I need to do is choose one of the connectivity mode, either import or direct query. Let's say first of all I want to make use of the import mode. So what I will do is I will select the import mode and I will click on OK. Then I should be able to fetch the data from the DB. So let's see. Okay, so we can see these many databases within my SQL server which I have created locally. And let's say from this particular simplify SQL DB, I want customers table. So I will select customers and then I can transform the data, but let's not waste our time. I will click on the load data. What will happen is with this, I have loaded the data into my Power BI file, that is PBIX file. This data is present in the Power BI, which also means that the data will be in the compressed format. So now as we can see that we have imported this customer table from the SQL server using the import mode. What that means is this data is getting stored in this particular table. As we can see, this table we can see here locally within the Power BI PBIX file. That's what I said, right? When you use the import mode, as we can see, the data is present within the PBIX file of the Power BI. So when do we use this import mode? When we want the performance to be faster. If the data size is smaller, that is few millions of rows are there, we can use it. But the real question is, why does import mode make the reports faster? For a simple reason, and that is when we store the data into the Power BI PBIX file, Power BI Vertipack engine will come into the picture. That will store the data into the columnar format. That means it will compress it. That makes the report faster. That is why in most of the scenarios, most of the organization, for most of the reports will make use of import mode. If you want the data to be faster, if you want to access the data offline, so even if there is no connectivity, still within the PBIX file we have the data. That is why we use import mode. I hope you got the clarity. Second mode that we are going to talk about is the direct query. How do you do that? Again, click on this get data option. Again, click on the SQL server. Again, I'll put the server name here just like I did last time. And from these two options, this time I will select direct query and I will click on OK button. I need not put database because that is optional. If you want, you can put it anyway. So I'll click on OK. Now with this, it will take me again to the same database, but let's say this time around I want to pull this purchases table. So I will quickly load the data and let us see if the table has got these records. So I'll go to tables and we can see purchases is here, but this table cannot be shown because it is not in import mode. That's what I have been saying. What happens in direct query is the data will not be stored in the Power BI PBIX file. It will stay in the SQL server that we have as a database. So anytime, so if I'm making the reports based on this particular table, every time, even if I'm clicking on any slicer, the query will go to DB from Power BI. So Power BI will act like a waiter. It will go to SQL server, it will fetch the required data and then show it in the report. That's why the speed or how fast the report is will depend upon the database. So we can see this particular table and we can see the server and the database and the storage mode is direct query. whereas this one is for the import mode. So we can see both the tables. The difference is that it is part of the data model, but when it comes to the data, the actual data, it is not here. Only the metadata is there. So how do we summarize this understanding of import mode and direct query? First and the foremost thing, data storage in Power BI. When it comes to data storage, direct query will not store data in Power BI, whereas import mode will store the data in the Power BI. Second thing, when it comes to performance, import mode will always give you a better performance because, as I said, the data is stored locally. Power BI Vertipack engine comes into picture and it will store the data in the compressed format, that is columnar format, that will make the reports faster. Whereas in case of the direct query, the performance of the report will depend upon the data source. If the data source is faster, it will give the good result. If there is a problem with the data source, obviously it will impact the performance of the report. The next parameter is offline access. We can access the report offline when it comes to import mode because the data is stored locally. When it comes to the tables which are fetched from the direct query, data cannot be accessed offline because you need the live connection to the data source. Okay. Also, you need to understand that when it comes to some of the complex DAX functions, import mode will support everything. But when it comes to some of the DAX functions, direct query will not support it. So that limitation is also there. And the last and the most important part is when to use direct query, when to use import mode. Let's say you have got few millions of records, then probably you should be able to make use of the import mode, and which is most commonly used. But let's say if the data is so huge and there are frequent changes to the data, you want the live data. In that case, you should have this connection wherein you will be constantly fetching the data from the SQL server or whichever server that you are connecting to. I hope this will give you understanding. Now make sure that you comment down on the video if that helps you. Please let me know your feedback. I don't like it when you guys don't give me feedback. Thank you so much for watching this.